Hey guys, what's up? And welcome to another podcast with Love Inspiry. So I think in one of Drake's songs he said one time, I think they call this venting. And this is one of those episodes where it's no real life, I don't want to say it's no real life lesson. There's a life lesson in everything, but there's no real lesson that I want to teach. It's just awareness that I want to bring. And I think that's the difference between this episode and then maybe some of my other episodes in the past, is where I'm kind of teaching, but this one is just more bringing awareness. So for those who don't know, I'm a product of two parents who were not married when they had me. In fact, from henceforth now forever, I don't think my parents will ever be together. They're both married, and so to other people. And so I think that's just something that's just not going to happen. Now, let me throw a disclaimer out there. I didn't have the type of parents that fought in front of me or acted belligerent and crazy. If they did argue, it definitely was not in front of me. I've never seen them angry at each other. It was just very much, my step parents got along with my real parents. It was just a vibe. Like, I had the best blended family ever, like, to me. Of course I'm a little biased because if you know me, I tell the truth whether we family or not. If it was messed up, I would tell you it was messed up, but no, it was really, really good. It was really, really just good. And I was pretty much raised primarily by my grandparents, in a household with my grandparents where I was kind of raised as the only child, but I was not an only child. I had siblings on my dad's side. I had siblings on my mom's side, and I'm the middle child on my mom's side, and I'm the oldest on my dad's side. And that, honestly, that was probably the most challenging growing up as a child, and then even into adulthood, as I'll talk about later on in the show. It was just a lot of confusion because it was a lot of moving parts, whereas it would just be easier if we all had the same parents. And I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason. There's nothing that has happened in my life that God didn't know about, that he didn't ordain, and I'm satisfied with that. If I didn't have the upbringing that I have or grow up where I grew up, I probably would never be with my husband. I probably would never be doing this. That one simple thing could change the whole trajectory of your life. So just appreciate where you're at. Little motivational moment right there. Just appreciate where you're at. But that's what we're here to talk about today, is jealousy in the household and just being more aware of how we're bringing kids into the world. And this came about from Khloe Kardashian and Tristan Thompson. For all those who don't know, if you're not an avid Shade Room follower, you need to get on it. No, but seriously, I saw in the Shade Room that she was having a second child with Tristan Thompson, and the first thought came into my head is, why does she keep having kids with somebody that's cheating on her and just treating her like crap? Like, what is the purpose of this, of being with him? And then I started seeing comments of where they have a reputation of. You see it in Kourtney Kardashian, you see it in Kylie Jenner, you see it in Khloe now, where they have this reputation of being with men to have the same, or wanting to have the same child wanting to have a child by the same man. Why was that so hard for me to say? I have no clue. But they're known for wanting to have the same father for their children. And at first I was like seeing comments about this, like, are they using men, whatever the case may be. Now, I don't agree with using people in any aspect or any realm. No, absolutely not. But I did start to think of, oh my gosh, that's not a bad idea for them to, or for people to want the same father for their kids. And the reason why is because I know personally the turmoil and the jealousy that it can cause in the household. And I would love to know your feelings on the matter as well. So make sure you tap into the conversation and let me know your thoughts on how you feel about this. But like I was saying, I don't think it's a bad thing to want your children to have the same father. However, I think it is wise to make sure that you're choosing the right father for your kids. And I'm not talking about rich, I'm not talking about status, I'm talking about integrity, I'm talking about his responsibility, I'm talking about his mentality. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about choosing the right person to father your children. And in this case, it was kind of that, like, you know, she keeps having a baby by somebody that's cheating on her, whatever the case may be. That's her problem. That's her situation. As Jordan Wood said, I don't need your situation. I'm not here to comment necessarily on that, but just talk about it as a whole and in dealing with this. And here's the problem. If you keep having children by a deadbeat, let's say you're this person that you want your kids to have the same father, but he's a deadbeat and he's proven that he's a deadbeat. If you keep doing it and complaining about him, then that's your problem. And I hate when women want sympathy for choosing to have children, multiple children, with deadbeats. If the first one is not working out how you thought it would, why would you want to have a second one with him? And that's what we're here to talk about. You're looking for sympathy if you keep going back to the same issues at that point. Don't do it. Don't keep having kids with somebody and then want sympathy from people because the man isn't doing what he's supposed to do or what you thought he would do. That's what I'm getting at. However, I think the reason that this is not a bad idea, and it's from my own personal stories, because I experienced jealousy because one sibling felt like because I had grandparents that provided for me that my mom should not do for me when I came over there. Like I said, because I had grandparents that did for me, I shouldn't get certain things because I was what she thought I was getting over there when really they had no idea what I was getting or not getting. Now, there would be no room for this if we all had the same parents, if we all grew up under the same household with the same parent, not just growing up under the same household with different daddies and different mamas, because we're going to talk about that later on in a minute, but just growing up with the same mother and the same father. Granted, there are people who favor children, right? So you have kids that grew up in a household, like my husband, he grew up in a 2-parent household, all his siblings have the same mother and father. And not saying this is the case for him, but I'm just saying in general, like, you could have a parent that may favor one child more than they favor the other. So jealousy could happen, but it's kind of a different jealousy, as opposed to having parent and child over here and then another parent and child over there. But like I said, it's still, jealousy can happen either way. But there was jealousy amongst certain siblings in my family because we didn't have ultimately it was because we did not have the same father, and my grandparents took care of me. And I had a sibling on my dad's side too. Like, I caught hell from mother's side and father's side. And my sister from my dad's side, she didn't necessarily take it out on us. That was the key difference. But I had a sibling on my dad's side. Like I told you guys, I'm the oldest. I have another sister after me, and then we have 2 younger sisters. And her mother, before I got married, my initials was AT. And her mother decided not to give her an AET initial, and then the 2 younger kids, their mother decided to give them the AET initial. So it kind of made her feel left out and kind of like not included, rightfully so, because honestly, I would feel the same way. I would feel like a little resentment if I'm the only sibling over here with the different initials. Like, I don't feel included or whatever the case may be. So I'm not blaming her at all for any of how she feels. I think it's very validated. However, I can go into depth about my situation. I really, really could. But I don't want to offend anybody. And, I don't want to start no family feud. But I did have a step parent who did more for their child than they did for, my siblings. And I feel like that was kind of partly out of spite because I felt like the step parent didn't like us at the time, even though we were there before they got there. It's kind of like we weren't made out of an affair. We were already here, so you should like us. But if we all came from the same parent, mother and father, this is what I'm getting at, guys, there would be no animosity. And I'm pretty sure, I'm almost 110% sure I am not the only person that has experienced this. I know people that have experienced this, and I know people that's going to feel this podcast on so many levels because I've spoken to people that have gone through similar situations with me where they've had a sibling out there that just felt like an outcast, or they kind of made themselves the black sheep of the family or whatever the case may be. But going back into the step parent that did more for their child than for my siblings, or me and my siblings, it brought me to a thing that was kind of circulating on social media where they were talking about a man. A woman was snapping on a man because he brought food for only his child and not her other children that weren't his. Now, here's the thing. Are men wrong for bringing food to their own children? Absolutely not. Now, here's the thing about this. I only would feel that he was wrong if he was in a relationship and or married to her. Now, I feel like when you are married to somebody, whether they have kids by 10 different baby dads or 10 different moms, like, you need to take on the responsibility of those children. Like I said, I came from inclusive family where my stepmom did not treat me any differently than she treated her biological child. And I've had a few stepmoms, 2 of them, yeah, they didn't treat me any differently. Or at least I'm sure there was some key differences, but they didn't make me feel like I was different. They always made me feel a part of them in some capacity. And I feel like if you are married to this person, you married all of them, for better or worse. That means they're 10 baby dads and they 10 baby moms. You know, you marry them and you go into that. But when you are no longer with the person, it is not the man's responsibility to take care of your other children. It is not his responsibility to take that on. And that's why it's so important for parents to be conscious of who they're having children with, how many children that they're having, and understand. And I think ultimately this is why God intended for people to be married before they had children. Now, if you have one child, if you have one child and your partner has only one child, completely different. I'm talking about people that have multiples from different people. If you have one child and the other person has one child, completely different. Completely different, because I feel like that person, you guys can mold, you guys can control how you show up in that person's life, as far as like not having animosity and tension towards one another. You guys can do things as a family together, whatever the case may be. That's completely different. But I'm talking about multiple children. I'm talking about what I experienced growing up, where it was just a lot going on over here and a lot going on over there. But I do think when this happens, I think that mothers need to be more conscious in letting the child know and being transparent and upfront with the child of what is taking place, what is happening, why this is happening, and, you know, just letting the child know that, okay, you may, you know, or even if you see your child if you see the father bringing your child's McDonald's, maybe you can get McDonald's for the other kids or whatever the case may be. But I think it's key for the mother to explain to the child, and like I said, be transparent with just everything that's going on, so they can have understanding, so they don't grow up to resent the sibling whose dad decided to take care of them when their dad didn't. You get what I'm saying? So, and also I think jealousy tends to flip around, because I think a lot of mothers in that situation, right? Hopefully this is making sense to you guys. I think a lot of mothers in that situation, they tend to favor the child that is getting less. I mean, can we argue, is that even fair? You know what I'm saying? There's a whole different, this is why I'm so conscious of, you know, when I start a family with Nate, I've always been big on making sure that, you know, our kids are tight, we have family nights, and we have that family dynamic, because that was something that was missing from my life. Like I said, because I've had a lot going on over here and a lot going on over there, and it just kind of put a damper, even in adulthood, of creating division amongst the family, amongst the siblings. And not, like I say, not intentionally, but it's just the circumstances of what's happening. But I do think that mothers can tend to favor the children that aren't getting, you know, taken care of by another parent. And I've had that experience too. But like I said, this is why God intended for marriage before children. Confusion comes out of this. And like I said, like I keep telling you guys, I'm a product of confusion. Like, I am literally the president. Like, I could tell y'all about this and how it just impacts your life. And even also impacts your relationships and how you show up in a relationship, because although people might look at me and say, oh, my mindset is good, but I think I'm kind of going to be a little overly family when me and Nate have children, like overly like, hey, you know, the family unit, and I don't want to be that overbearing parent. So it can turn out either or. We just have to wait and see what happens. But the Bible talks about these things. Sarah and her handmaiden, you know, she had her husband go knock the handmaiden up because she couldn't have kids. What ended up happening? She ended up becoming jealous of the little baby. You know what I'm saying? Wanted to send them off. So we have to be conscious of this. There's nothing new under the sun. Everything that we will experience, I'm 110% sure is somewhere in the Bible for us to understand and just study and all that stuff. But we have to learn to be secure in our relationships before we have children, because I think if we wait and truly get to know a person, I think a lot of us wouldn't have had children with the people that we had children with, let alone multiple children. Like, we keep making the same mistake over and over again. Like I said, one is different, but when you have 2, 3, 4, that's when it becomes a little bit challenging. So the point of this was to bring awareness and open the conversation and the dialogue of how can we break the cycle of this keep happening in our households. The first thing, like I said, is to bring awareness to it, to open a conversation and to talk about it. Especially in the Black community, we see this where, I say this all the time, where we are taught to sweep things under the rug and act like nothing happened, act like it doesn't exist, whatever the case may be. We just wipe it away and nothing happens. And I think we have to start having these conversations and having these conversations with the children. Really, none of my parents really sat down with me and said, don't do this. I see what this is doing to you and your sibling. Don't go down this route. And so for me, it's a conversation because I've experienced it, because I know what it can do to a family and to siblings, even in adulthood. I am going to be conscious of this with my kids and making sure that they're making the right decisions. It also starts with dealing with the residual trauma. A lot of us fall into what we call generational curses. We made the mistake our mother made, our grandmother made, or her mother made, and then her mother made the same mistake. We keep making these same mistakes. So we have to be able to pick up and deal with that residual trauma that is kind of keeping us in bondage. That's kind of keeping us from making right and sound decisions for our families. And even any kind of residual trauma you're going through, whether it be abuse, whether it be childhood abandonment, all that's going to impact who you choose to have a baby with, how you raise that child, and then it impacts everything. So dealing with that residual trauma is most important. Also, keeping your boundaries and knowing what you want. We have to understand that it's, I'm not here to say don't have sex. Maybe I should. I don't know. I'm not here to tell you that. Get it how you live, pimp. But just making sure that you have some kind of sexual boundaries in choosing the right person and having sex with, and also understanding that if you lay down, what could possibly come of you laying down. And I think a lot of people, that's why I hate when people say they were surprised, because I'm like, anytime I lay down with my husband, if I take a pregnancy test, I'm not going to be shocked. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it's not going to, if you lay down, you're going to it's a possibility that you can get pregnant. It's a possibility that anything can happen if you lay down with somebody. So it's just about picking that right person to have that sexual intimacy with, knowing what you want and keeping those boundaries, letting him or her know, like, listen, I'm not just out here willy-nilly trying to have kids with just anybody, or, I just making sure that you know what you want, that you're choosing the right person, and that you're setting boundaries with them. And then obviously we know about protecting ourselves and preventing certain things from happening. I think these are all things to think about when we're choosing a partner, and understanding that our decisions is going to impact our children. And it's going to impact them in adulthood as well. Like I said, I have been dealing with this even in adulthood, jealousy from childhood stuff, even in adulthood. And so what we do as parents, what we do as grown adults, we have to be conscious. We have to be mature of that. And then also, if you fall in a circumstance where you have multiple kids by different people, stuff happens. But it's about learning from that. And it's about, like I said, keep saying, being transparent with your children. I didn't have anybody to be transparent with me about the situation and say, listen, I just saw it. I have experienced it, still experiencing it. And I don't want that for my kids. I don't want that for my grandkids. I don't want that for anybody in general, or anybody that I love. So it's just about how we, if we fall into that situation, just being mature with who we are with. Being mature and understanding that if you're no longer with this person, they're going to move on. They have a right to move on, but just co-parenting in the best manner that you know how. Just showing up and remembering it's not about you and your feelings. It's about this child now that you guys, or these children that you brought forth into this world. And so that's all I have today. I just wanted to share my story, vent, and get that off my chest, because I kind of feel like, it's beneficial to have your kids by the same person. Not saying that even if you do have kids by the same person, not saying that they can't possibly grow up in a crappy home. That could definitely well happen too. I know people that have the same parents and they are not the best individuals, or they lack in a certain area, or they have some kind of trauma that they haven't dealt with. It just being an all-around good person, making the right decisions. And like I said, we're not always going to make the right decisions, but learning from the bad decisions that we make and being able to pick back up the pieces and do better. When you know better, you do better. And so that's what it's about. And I just wanted to share my thoughts on that. If you are a step parent, love that child like your own, because when they grow up, they're still going to have a little bit of resentment towards you, because they're going to remember how you treated them when they were younger. So love that child as your own. Be there for that child as your own. If you're married to that person, that is your child too. That is your child too. Love them, protect them just as you would your own. And that's all I have to say on that, guys. I just want to, I just wanted to share my story and just bring awareness to the conversation. And like I keep saying, I don't have to keep saying that again. But yeah, so make sure you guys check out next week's episode. We're going to be talking about women proposing to men and men taking the woman's last name, all that good stuff. I'm going to have my husband on the show. He's going to tap in with us and give us his thoughts from a man's perspective on that. Guys, the show's quote for today is, there are no illegitimate children, only illegitimate parents. So take that as you will. I hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast. Tap in the comments below. And if you are listening on the podcast, make sure you head over to our social media and share your thoughts over there. I'll see you guys all in the next one. Have a blessed day.